the question really is, should I stay or should I go?
Yes, a very weighted question. Like you said, very much applicable in both of our practices with respect to myself, helping my clients decide if they want to stay in a marriage or move forward with divorce. And with yourself, helping clients decide if they want to stay in their current job where maybe it's a toxic work environment, they're very unhappy. So yes, I'm excited to dive in so that people can really see these parallels. And I'm also excited that we're able to talk to a bunch of people today, whether you're in the marriage field or in the unhappy job field. So we're here for you both.
Or both.
Yeah, that happened to me, actually. That literally happened to me. So I would love to just get started. First things first, just maybe we can share a little bit about ourselves and how we work with our clients, and then jump right into some of the more practical advice and education. So Sonia, why don't you kick it off?
Yeah, sure. So, as you mentioned, my name is Dr. Sonia Ashok. I am a physician turned career and leadership coach, and I focus on workplace recovery. So really taking that medical training, bringing it into the career and coaching space, really understanding where people are coming from a mental health standpoint, as well as really being able to come to the conversation with empathy and understanding, because of course in my situation as well, I did have that toxic workplace or workplaces, and as well did have a number of career transitions that I moved through across the years. So going from medicine to policy and tech, and now so really also supporting people who are thinking about what it looks like to not just leave their job, but maybe leave their
Totally, yes. Feel like it's very much an issue in the current working world, especially post-COVID. Lots of people who are making career moves, but those concerns remain. So it's great that you're there to help them out and help them have clarity in that decision-making process. So I personally am a marriage and divorce coach. So I got my start as a divorce attorney. I worked at a couple of law firms in Chicago for about 6.5 years. And then navigated my own divorce in 2020. So I've seen divorce from both personal and professional angles, and saw the benefits of coaching in both angles as well. As a lawyer, I was always happy when my clients had coaches. And personally, I saw the value and the benefit when I went through my own divorce. And so I really help my clients at all stages of the process, and we can start working together no matter where you're at in the process, whether that is making this initial decision that we're talking about today, or preparing to take that leap, support during the divorce process itself, or even building your post-divorce chapter. So I think what we definitely have in common so far is somebody making a big decision to make a big change in their lives and have a fresh start in a huge aspect of their life.
Yeah. And, it's unfortunate that it has to happen this way, but I think that many coaches are doing what they do because they feel so passionate about the own experiences that they've had in their life and the transition that they've made to, their growth and becoming a changed person, a different person.
Yes, 100%. Through hard times and challenges, that's where we really grow and learn. So yes, here we are passing it on to our clients and everybody out there. So let's just dive right in. I mean, let's start with maybe the first part of this title, which is should I stay? So discussing, reasons to potentially stay in a marriage or a particular job career.
Yeah. I think one thing that really covers both things is, financial stability, right? When you're thinking about leaving a job, there's not always another job to jump to. And so you really do want to make sure that you have some kind of income source while you are in the process of leaving and looking for the next thing. That can mean that you're, living a little bit frugally for a bit and saving. Ideally, there is sort of this recommendation of 3 months of salary saved in I recommend a high yield savings account so that you can grow your money while you're saving. But, in the current economy, it can sometimes take longer than months to find your next role. So, maybe 3 months is sort of that minimum, and anything beyond that, if you can do 4, 5, 6 months of savings in your bank account before you leave, before you jump ship, if you can, and we'll talk about that when we talk about should I leave, but if you can, the more savings you have, more of a safety net you have, the better it is.
I love that, that the parallel is there, like you said, for both types of decisions. And so when you're trying to decide whether you want to leave your marriage, financial stability and concerns of that nature are definitely something to consider. I would never counsel someone to stay in a marriage that they were just so unhappy in simply for the money. Because, you know, in a divorce, you're going to get some of the assets. You might potentially get spousal support. And so there's ways to kind of divvy up everything to ensure your financial security while also maintaining your mental health, and helping you get out of that relationship. But as far as, you know, preparations to do that, similar to what you're saying, you know, you want to really start to get a sense of what is my financial situation, both me and my spouse. What funds do I have access to right now? And how can I really set myself up for success if I decide I want to move out? Again, having that runway of available funds, or, you know, talking to an attorney to figure out how you can maybe get some temporary support in place. Either way, financials are always a big consideration, and it can be a big impediment to leaving an otherwise unhappy, unfulfilling marriage and or job, I presume.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things that I like to say is that when you are contemplating leaving your job, to really think about how you can quit on your best day. And what I mean by that is, how can you make the most and take the most from this job, this opportunity, while you're still there? And that means, like, can you connect to as many people as possible across your company, make some, you know, connections, make some relationships that you potentially to that next thing. You know, you can tap into those people's networks to find a mentor, to find your next role, all those kinds of things. But also think about, you know, if the reason that you're unhappy at your job is because you don't enjoy the work, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be a toxic situation. Whether or not it is, are there other people who you can spend more time with rather than the person who is toxic to you or the people? Are you able to find additional roles or responsibilities that you can do across the company that feel a little bit more aligned and can maybe give you a little bit of training and experience that you can use to get your next job and say, you know, what, working in finance at this company, I also was working with the marketing team to learn a little bit about that role. And so that's what I mean by quit your best day, is to really just take advantage of the opportunity and the situation that you're in while you're there, so that when you leave, you're not leaving anything on the table.
I love that advice. I think it transitions pretty well over to the marriage sphere as well, in that there are a lot of opportunities and options you can look into before deciding to leave the relationship. Again, like you said, unless it's like a very toxic place where you need to get out and protect your mental health. But if it's just a marriage that you're not feeling happy or fulfilled in, there's definitely opportunities and options to explore, such as, of course, counseling and coaching, just to gain clarity on what your expectations really are in a marriage and a spouse, and how your current situation is stacking up. Obviously, there are different books and podcasts that you can access to help you in this process as well. And, you know, this isn't something that's talked about that often, but there's also the opportunity to grow your other relationships in your life, including your relationship with yourself. If you really feel like you don't believe in divorce, or divorce is just really not a possibility for you, right? How can we make the best of your current situation? What are your other relationships look like? What are your hobbies? What are your passions? How can you continue to learn and grow as a human, despite maybe your spouse not really growing along with you? Because there's really a few different things you can do if you're in an unhappy relationship. You can accept it, you can try to change it, or you can get out of it. And so accepting it in the sense wouldn't mean like accepting poor treatment, but it would mean, okay, I've accepted that I'm not happy in this marriage, but what else can I do to make myself happy other than this marriage? So just some food for thought there.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I did in one of my toxic jobs was using the education benefit. And I actually ended up taking a training course that helped me to step into a different field. And, you know, that really is an opportunity that many people have, is that, you know, accessing that training budget or your education credits to, you know, learn something new that can take you to the next level.
100%. And that could be done in an unhappy marriage as well, right? If you and your spouse agree you want to go back to school, or you want to do some kind of training, and you agree on the cost of that and what the investment's going to be, you can really look at that as preparing for your next chapter if you ultimately decide you don't want to stay married. So benefits of the training and education are really on both sides, if the financial resources are there, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know you mentioned a couple of times about, you know, if it's safe to stay, and if it's the right decision to stay. Should we talk a little bit about what it looks like to make that decision to leave?
100%. Yes. I think the decision to leave tends to be more difficult than the decision to stay. I think just because the way our brains are wired, change is always scary for us. And so sometimes it's like the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. And so it's like making the decision to actually end the relationship carries a lot more weight to it. So things that you want to consider would be, again, going back to those expectations. What are my expectations in a partner? Where does my current partner stack up? Is it realistic to think that they'll be able to change? And if not, is this a deal breaker for me? Am I prepared to walk away from this relationship if I don't have those certain needs and expectations met? In a similar vein, having the therapy and the coaching, again, to have that sounding board as you sort through your thoughts and emotions about this topic, because sometimes it can feel very overwhelming. And so it helps to just have that objective third party with you. You also really want to think about, are there any sort of external factors that are causing pressure for you to stay in the marriage? Because so often those things are ingrained in us and we think that's who we are and that's what we believe. But taking a big step back and trying to decide, is this actually what I believe, or am I just doing what I've been told to do or what society is saying we should do?
Yes, absolutely. And I think for careers as well, right? There are those external expectations. For myself, it was, you're in a good career, you're in medicine. Why would you ever want to leave? Why would you ever want to do something different? But what I like to say is, if you're in an unsafe situation, if you're dealing with intolerable conditions, I talk to clients all the time who are saying, I'm crying every single day at work, right? That's really not a place where you want to stay and stick around and see how long, it takes to find the next role. That's really where you want to get out, because one of the symptoms of burnout, when we think about burnout as a, environmental issue, a workplace phenomenon, right? That is brought onto us by that corporate environment. One of the hallmark characteristics of burnout is those physical and mental health impacts. And so when you're talking about having a health condition that is resulting from your workplace, from the stress that is accumulating on your body through going into this environment on a day-to-day basis. I experienced it myself. One of my last jobs, I started having random pains in my body. My menstrual cycle, TMI, was completely off. Mm-hmm. And as I left the job, it all went away. And so if you're starting to see those physical health impacts coming from your job, I would say don't let it go too far, because I've seen people who develop autoimmune disorders, lupus, arthritis, all sorts of things that are not going to go away after you end that job. And I imagine, very similarly in an unpleasant and toxic marriage, right? When you start to see those physical, depression, anxiety, all of those kinds of things that result from the interactions with that other person, it really isn't a good place to remain. And, we talk about safety, right? And there is a safety of being where we are. There's a fear of change that we all experience, but there is no safety in an unsafe environment. I think that we have to really remember that even though it feels easier to stay and making that change and making that jump is more difficult, it is ultimately going to be the best thing for you.
Yes, 100%. I couldn't agree more as far as, these physical symptoms manifesting when you are in a relationship that doesn't make you happy. It's not fulfilling. You are constantly kind of in like this fight or flight mode where you're on edge. And, you've got all of that cortisol and adrenaline pumping all the time. And, in the long term, if you're operating like that on a day-to-day basis, it does impact you physically as well as mentally, of course. And while you might not be in immediate danger, this is your life, this is your body. And so it's just as much a danger as, say, something that's more immediately harmful to you. It's just over an extended period of time. And just because you can endure it or, work well under stress doesn't mean that you have to or that it's the best thing for you, because there are other options. Another thing I would mention when considering should I go is like, how often are you thinking about divorce? Like, is it coming up every single day, multiple times during the day? Or does it only come up, maybe like after a big argument or something? If you're frequently thinking about it and almost like envisioning your life, what it would look like without that person next to you,